The doctor is in. It's Sunday afternoon. Mo's going to be here in a second. We are trying to find one of our guests, but we are here and we're so excited.
Going to be here in a
today.
second. We are trying to.
We're so excited to have our baby Ariana here today. Whoops, I always go the wrong way. Right. Ariana here today, and her baby sister Isis. So we are going to talk about young women and breast cancer, and we're thinking that our guests, one of our guests, isn't feeling well, so we're here. We're going to do the show, and we are going to talk about Ari's story. And some of you may be familiar with it, but breast cancer doesn't really care how old you are. And Black women under the age of 30 get breast cancer at 4 times the rate of white women, and we really don't know why. Sometimes it's associated with the BRCA gene, which Ari has, but sometimes it's not. We don't really know. And then Black women under 35 get breast cancer at twice the rate of white women, die at 3 times the rate. So this disease is hitting us younger and often at advanced stages, because often what happens with young women is they get dismissed by their doctors, and they'll find a lump, they'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will say, come back in 6 months, you're fine. You're too young for a mammogram. So we have lots to talk about this. Ari actually has a great story to share, and Mo's going to come in a minute. So Ari, why don't you tell your story? Here comes Mo. Tell your story, and first introduce Isis.
Okay.
And then tell your story. Hey, Mo.
I'm Ari. I'm the baby survivor of Touch. To the right of me, I have my baby sister Isis. She's 21 years old. I'm 23, so we're about 2.5 years age gap. So my story starts with one day I was just casually taking a shower at home before class, and I came across a hard mass. And immediately after filling this mass, I got out the shower and I called my doctor's office and asked them if I could get a birth exam done. I've never got one done clinically, so it was kind of strange scheduling it, and I never thought I was going to need anything like that. But, I do have a family history of breast cancer, and my family always told me about breast exams. So that was just something I knew I was aware of.
Which is great, because that's usually not the case,
Absolutely. And so I went in, got the breast exam, and that's when the nurse practitioner told me that she thought it was concerning just because of how it felt and everything like that. So she sent me in to get a biopsy done. Once I got the biopsy done, they told me I was going to wait 2 weeks to get the results. So just like an average person, I was getting ready for class one day, and I got the call, and I knew something was off because my nurse practitioner, she normally has like a high, pippy, happy voice, and she just sounded very monotoned. And she pretty much just told me that my results came back and that I had invasive ductal carcinoma. And, in the moment I was like, okay, what's that? That sounds like something I could do, or I don't know what I was thinking. Like, it didn't sound anything scary to me. And then that's when she told me that it was cancer. And instantly it was just like the room just got still, and I got hot, and there was just a million thoughts racing through my mind. Obviously I did not go to class that day. So, I just called the people that were close to me, and that's where kind of my support system story comes into play. I lost my mom about 2 years prior to my diagnosis date. My dad lived in New York, so he was pretty far. I live in Texas, and due to my mom's death, me and my siblings were kind of like scattered all over the place at that point. So, had to rely on a lot of random family members, a lot of friends, and then when my sisters could be there, they would definitely show up. So after my diagnosis, they created my treatment plan, and I got to choose my doctor, which was really cool, from the help of my breast navigator. And then once I chose my doctor, got my plan, I started chemo. I went through 4 rounds of AC, or as cancer patients like to call it, the Red Devil. It was definitely one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my life, physically, and mentally. I was a college student. I stayed in school full time. So I asked my doctor if I could. I think she really wanted me to get my chemo every 2 weeks, but I got it every 3 weeks because I wanted to stay in school full time and I wanted to have that energy to be able to walk to class and stay awake to study and things of that nature. So I went through those 4 treatments. And then I started my 12 rounds of Taxol. That felt like water compared to the AC. I really didn't have any side effects from Taxol except for like a little bit of neuropathy. But my infusion therapist, she has these magical vitamins that she recommended me that took my neuropathy away. So I just took those during treatment.
Ooh, what were they? Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm saying it right. I think it's lipoic acid.
Lipoic acid, yes.
Oh,
Yep, I took that, and then I took B6.
Okay.
that's great.
And
Wow.
that combination, and that was like the only side effect I really had from that chemo. And my hair was actually growing back on that chemo. And I was like, I was thrilled because obviously that was something that I struggled with being young and being in school. I really did not wear my bald head out. That wasn't something that I was comfortable with. So when I was getting that,
What did you do there? You wore a lot of wigs or a lot of head wraps and things?
well, I only wore one wig. And of course, I bought a wig that looked like the hair that I had before I lost it. And that was something I was kind of sad about. Like, I wish I would have got all kinds of wigs. I wish I would have got pink and purple and everything like that. But I feel like I didn't want people to know I was sick. I did not want anyone knowing I was wearing a wig. So that's why I was trying to make it seem like I was okay. But yeah, you lose everything else. I didn't have no eyebrows and anything else. So I guess they could have really noticed if they wanted to. But, like I said, it was the first journey was very mental, I think. See, I got through all my chemos and then I had a double mastectomy. Then I had the mass reconstruction. I was chilling. We were celebrating. And then 6 months later, I felt another rock, another lump. And I just knew in that moment, all I could do was just sit there and shake my head and cry because I just knew. And went in again, got a lumpectomy, thought I was in the clear, got my pathology report back and came back a week later. Had to get another surgery. And then I went through 6 rounds of chemo. That chemo was pretty, it was okay. My main side effect was if I just got overheated, I would break out in rashes. And given that I lived in Texas and it's hot, I was getting rashes all over my body. It was crazy. And I got to keep my hair for that chemo. So that was exciting. I mean, it did thin out a little bit, but I could just throw some hair over that spot and I was okay. It was
hair. It was hair.
Literally, it was easier this time to like see it come out and everything because I knew I knew what to expect. Still stayed in school that entire time too. And then what happened was different for my second cancer journey. I was able to get radiation. So the first time I didn't get radiation because I not only have the BRCA gene mutation, but my doctors say that I also have the TP53 gene mutation, which TP53 everyone has in their body. It's your cancer fighting cells. And my doctors just said that I don't have those. So the combination of that mutation and the BRCA gene mutation is probably why I got diagnosed so young. And so they didn't want me to get radiation the first time because they thought I was going to get a second cancer. So the second time they were like, yep, you got to get the radiation. So I got the radiation and it was just another part of my journey because I was ironically going to school to be a radiation therapist that entire time. So I not only got to experience and relate to my patients about chemo, but the second journey allowed me to like actually experience radiation. So like when my patients now come to me and ask me about side effects, it's not just what you hear in the textbook. And I'm like, when your body's telling you it's too hot outside and you feel weak, don't push yourself. You're going to be in bed for the rest of the day. Like, that's something that the like books don't tell you.
Right,
so
right.
I get to, and like those vitamins, I get to sprinkle my little secrets over how to get through treatment and, even how to keep a positive mind through treatment too. I feel like in all aspects, it made me a better healthcare worker. And I don't know. It made me stronger too, because just having the willpower, I feel like, to get through those 2 journeys and turn my pain into purpose is.
Wow. There's so much to unpack there because it sounds like you have a life of cancer being around you. So I guess my one question for you before we get to the next guest is what keeps you positive and motivated throughout all of this?
I feel like it was different things for each journey. I feel like for my first journey, it was school, ironically. Like, I feel like studying, going to class, still hanging out with my friends, things of that nature kept me on a normal life. And I feel like the second time, I really had to tap into like my spirituality and really get uncomfortable to get comfortable. Really address some things that I knew I struggled with, like, a lot of cancer patients feel like they don't look pretty during their journey. I really had to like get over that and see myself in its rawest form and be okay with that.
Right.
And just being okay with, in my first cancer journey, I always used to focus on like, why didn't this person hit me up? Why didn't they care? We were just friends 3 years ago. You didn't even care to ask, like, wow, Ari got cancer. That was what I focused on. I feel like my second time, I really just focused on who was there, and the support grew.
Wow.
So like really shifting from that victim mindset. And I always like to call my cancer journey victim to victor, because.
Love that. Let's talk about that support group though, because how do you help people know how to show up for you when you're at an age when you're not even supposed to be dealing with things like cancer? How did your family approach it, and your chosen family and your blood family? How did everybody do in terms of that support? Or was it something that you had to sort of help them with to be able to give you the support you needed?
I feel like you got to explain it, because no matter how devastating the news is to yourself, like, people don't know. They just don't know. So like right now, I just have a whole new friend group that I made in the new city I live in. We have, like a small little group of friends. We go out every week. We talk about our careers, everything like that. And, I invited them to our breast cancer ball. And like, a week before the event, they were like, sorry, we can't come. And it really hurt my feelings. But I was like, these girls weren't here to see my cancer journeys. Like, they don't know that part of my life. So I should have been more open and expressed to them how important it is to me, because, it's just different when it comes to that group of audience. Like, everyone in their 20s is worried about all the major problems that are going on in their life. So like I said, I got to get uncomfortable to get comfortable and really be like, yeah, these things are super important to me and I need that support. And, that's just something I feel like every survivor really learns through the whole thing. Just finding out who's there for them.
And also you didn't really have Blesstie support when you were sick, because, who'd you know at your age that had cancer? Right.
Wow. Well, can we talk to your sister? Hey.
This cutie pie over here, Isis.
She's so beautiful. I love it.
I know, right? She's so beautiful.
How did you deal with all of this? Because it's something else watching your loved one go through it, right?
And that was a lot. Like, I remember when she first told me, I remember like exactly how the call went. Like, I just got off from school and she FaceTimed me.
How old were you?
17.
You're so
I
nice.
was 17. Her voice sounded like very sad. She told me, and I remember we just cried together. Like, we cried, and then, we talked about what we're gonna do, like how we're gonna keep positive throughout this whole hard process, how we're gonna continue, we're gonna grow, and just, oh, I'm getting so emotional.
It is, because even the day when I was diagnosed, like, I called all my sisters except for Isis. I was like, I can't even call her. She's at school. She's the baby of the family. The babies usually be the most sensitive of the family. So I was like, oh my God, I know I can't even tell her when she's at school, she's gonna pass out in the bathroom. So I was like, I'm gonna wait till she gets home. When the mood was settled, and she almost looked shocked, like she could not believe it. And I feel like that was like really all the reaction of my sisters. And my best friends, I had to call and tell them too. They were like, what? No. And my aunt was like, no, I need to call the office myself because
Sure,
it don't sound like they was explaining it right. Like everyone just was, even though I do have breast cancer history on both sides of my family.
Yeah. What did your grandmother who had breast cancer say when she heard the news?
My grandma felt guilty because she has the BRCA gene, and she was like, I passed it to you. And my grandma also had triple negative. So she was like, I really gave all of that to you. She was like, I'm sorry. It's like,
That's interesting because, on the doctor side of things, we think that this information helps people to feel empowered so that they can, let their loved ones know when to start screening and all these things. But I think there is a lot of guilt associated with knowing that you have the mutation or learning that you have it, especially after cancer has already happened in the family. But I think it's really brave, for the whole family to get tested and to be able to say, okay, this is what we need to watch out for. This is how vigilant we need to be, because so many people get cancer in their family young and they don't know what it's attributed to. And it may not be attributed to a gene mutation. And when you know that, you can kind of plan accordingly. Like you said, you didn't get radiation the first time because of P53 and other things. And so I really applaud your grandmother, and I hope that, she didn't feel that guilt for too long.
Right.
I think she still does, honestly, because my grandma she doesn't wear pink. She doesn't post about breast cancer awareness month.
Yeah.
To be honest, I really didn't even know she had breast cancer until I got cancer. And it was just kind of like some people knew, but we never really talked about it.
Gotcha.
And I feel like
So
even
you didn't know you had the gene before you had cancer.
no, my grandma wanted all of us to get tested for the gene, but obviously only my grandma's daughters, my aunts, were the only ones that got tested. And some of my other cousins got tested. So if my cousins came back negative, they knew their dads were negative. So obviously it's positive. And one of my aunts is positive, and she got her double mastectomy, even though she was never diagnosed.
Well, let me take a minute and introduce Candace Price. Candace.
Hi, Candace.
Hey, Candace. She was supposed to be at the banquet we were at yesterday, airing the documentary, A Letter to My Sisters. Candace was diagnosed with breast cancer at 28. And we wanted to invite you on and talk about your story and share whatever, things that you are comfortable sharing about your journey, because, a lot of young women are watching. It's Breast Cancer Action Month, and we want people to be aware that breast cancer can happen in young women. And when it does, it's a different beast, and there's different things to consider, even from the support and advocacy standpoint. So Candace, tell us about you.
Sure. Hi, thank you for having me today. I was diagnosed November 2017. I had just turned 28, 2 months prior, and I had no breast cancer history in my family. I had no inkling that was what was happening. I remember maybe June of that year feeling something like a lump in my breast and not really thinking much about it. And also 28, not really very good at doing self-exams and monitoring changes in my breast or what was going on in my body. I had earlier been dealing with a fibroids diagnosis, and I needed to go back to my OBGYN to follow up on some imaging. And so when I went there to follow up on that, I asked her, hey, I noticed this in my breast. Is that the same as what you normally feel? Is this my normal? I was asking her, and she's told me really great advice that I understand not everyone always gets. She was like, if you notice something strange, let's follow up on it. So she advised me to get an ultrasound, and then the ultrasound person said, not really sure what this is. I'm sure lots of young people who were diagnosed have also heard the phrase, you're too young for cancer. So that was the first time I heard that. You're too young for cancer, but whatever that is, it needs to come out. So he advised that I get a biopsy. Once again, not thinking anything of it. My mom had calcifications in her breast. So I just assumed, you have what your mother has. So I just assumed that's what it was. No big deal. I had vacation plans coming up, and I was not going to let this non-lump interfere with my life plans. So I went on a cruise with my mom, came back, did the biopsy, and was actually at work when they called me and told me that I had breast cancer over the phone. I I was in a state of shock initially. I was completely floored. You know, I know that maybe most people, when they go into imaging and they are like talking with like a, you know, an OBGYN or whomever about like what this could be, they entertain all of the possibilities, but I did not entertain the possibility of cancer. Like it never even crossed my mind. So I had to walk through that. And that was a very interesting journey. You know, I had a good support system of family and close friends who checked in with me. I'm like this church sister I met that also was a breast cancer survivor, really took me under her wing. She like called me and told me like everything that happened in her journey. She brought me like a lunch bag of like things like preps, like the water I should be drinking, wash your mouth with this type of thing. Like she really took me under her wing and came to like a few appointments with me, and it was really, really helpful to have that extra support person along the journey. So for my treatment, I ended up doing an immunotherapy trial as well as chemotherapy, a lumpectomy, and radiation.
What kind of breast cancer do you
So
have?
I was diagnosed with triple negative, so
negative.
it was stage 3A because it was in one of my lymph nodes as well. Yeah, it
Wow.
was triple negative. Yeah, and it was so interesting, you know, when you start to learn about the different types of cancers, and I had no idea there was anything besides just breast cancer, right?
Right.
I
Right.
I didn't know about HER2, positive, negative, estrogen, none of that. And then to find out after being diagnosed that being a younger person, being a Black woman are all like key factors towards like having triple negative breast cancer. And so I thought that was so interesting. Not only like in our communities, not being aware of this thing that we were like at a higher propensity to have, but some of the factors that I could have, you know, taken into consideration to maybe prevent or identify sooner. So it's very interesting to learn all of
What
this.
immunotherapy did you do?
So it was like the common name is Keytruda, pembrolizumab.
Wow.
Um, but it was a stage 3 trial, so it was double blind. So I was double blinded. I'm not sure if I got it or didn't get it, but I like to think that I got it.
Yeah.
So you know, it was before, like while I did chemo, and then after I did radiation, I did my trial sessions.
Wow, that's so awesome. I'm so glad you did a clinical trial because I think, especially, I think for any Black woman under 40 with triple negative breast cancer, a clinical trial is our best option. You know, we don't have any drugs for our disease and it's the best option. So I'm really proud of
I
you.
love that they offered you a trial,
I
right?
know, I know.
Because
Yeah.
when you look at the trial statistics, a lot of times there's certain inclusion and exclusion criteria, and they don't always remember to include the 18 to 35. They think, okay, 35 on up. But the inclusion criteria say age 18 or older, but you still see very few young women in clinical trials for some reason. And I think there's some bias that's there, you know, because they either think you won't do it or you don't have enough support or you won't be compliant, or there's some bias in the health system around young women in clinical trial enrollment as well, I bet, if we look at the numbers.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So where were you getting care?
Helen F. Graham in Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay, great. So that's really good. I mean, I love that, the fact that they, you know, that they offered you a trial because it's not happening. So that
Yeah,
is,
and I will say, like, I was also encouraged to enroll in the trial
that's,
um, by, you know, another church sister. She was like just expressing to me the importance of if you are offered a trial to engage in it, because so many of the advancements that we have had in like breast cancer treatment is because people have gone through the trials, and there are like a shockingly low number of Black female participants. And so you, without those participants, you don't get the data to see how it affects our community. And it could be in unique ways. And I think that I experienced some of those side effects that they didn't really know what to do with them, or okay, you got like this discoloration on your fingernails. All right, interesting. Like we're noting that, and like without the participants, you don't have the data to study and make improvements.
You don't, and often the side effects could be different for Black versus white women, you know, so to know that, yeah, my nails turn black too, but I think also, in about that time is when Keytruda was in trial, and they were getting good results for Black women, and so they kind of, you know, enhanced the trial of recruiting because it was doing such great work, you know, it was kind of a drug for lung cancer 8 years ago, so when they started testing it in breast and triple negative and getting results, they started like, you know, really, you know, pumping up the trials, which is awesome. Because really they're the only drug we have for early stage triple negative even now. Keytruda.
You know who's over that program is Dawn Leonard now. She came out of hospital center.
Yes.
She's a Black surgical oncologist, a Blesstie friend of mine. We call
Yeah.
ourselves Blesties for a different reason. But talk to us about your support group. I know you said you had support from your church, and Ari, you can speak to this too, but were there a lot of sort of young survivors events and things, or did you have to kind of seek that out, or do you still find that you need to seek out community of survivors, not just your own support system, but if you want to be around people who know exactly what you've been through and how things are going for you, is that something that's more available now than when you were first diagnosed? For both of you.
So I could start. I think maybe a few months into my treatment journey, I found the cancer support community in my local area, and they had a young survivor group. So once a week we would meet like on campus, and people were around my age. They weren't necessarily all breast cancer patients or survivors, but there were a good number of breast cancer survivors in that group. So I was happy to find people that were really close to my age, that I could relate to. Like we were thinking about things like fertility, like somebody who is over 60 may not be thinking about these things,
Right.
but we are, you know, in our late 20s, and it's, you know, if we want to think about future and family, like, okay, it looks different for us. And I also just found some online like Facebook groups, sort of like talk to.
Right. Were there Black women in the groups, or were they?
So the first session that I went to, there was one Black woman there. She was actually like she had like throat cancer, and she was like on the older side of our group, I'll say. She was like older, like 30s, low 40s, but she was only there for one session. And then after that, there were no other women, like people of color in my group than when I was there. What I missed this young lady, Noelle, who she was younger than me. I think she was maybe like 15 or 16, and she had leukemia. She lived lower in Delaware, so she only came up for one time, but we would see each other like online. But yeah, in terms of people of color, it was me.
I feel like during my first journey, I got online and I tried to look for local groups, but I lived in like a city that was in between larger cities. So there were only groups in the larger cities, and I didn't really want to make that long of a commute to go to a cancer group. And then it was like just the descriptions, like one of the cancer groups was like Cowboy Cancer Sisters or something like that. And I was like, not going to that. Like, I was like, I'm not going to that. And
Did they have line dancing now?
you said no.
Did they have line dancing?
There was I really didn't have a support system the first time. You know, I did talk to a lot of women that were in the infusion room with me, and I made some close friends, but they're nowhere near my age.
Right.
And then my second time, my second journey was during COVID. So like the whole world was shut down. I couldn't even bring a family member back with me in the infusion room anymore. So like it was really lonely during that time period.
Yeah.
But then I met Ricky and the rest of y'all. And I felt like that was like being a part of Touch was my support group. Like doing these web shows, like I used to be, well, still to this day, but yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be on a web show. Like they're gonna ask me questions, and there's other women on there. And like even through this process, I've came across more women that have been diagnosed around the same age. I know women that were diagnosed at 19, but they're like 40 years old right now. So
Yeah, so they're not dealing with it now that you're in it, but they started young, I know.
but I think it's okay right now that my support group doesn't look like my age group, because I feel like sometimes I'm pretty advanced for my age group, and I feel like I relate better with the more mature
With
dogs.
the old ladies, the old survivors.
Yeah, Mama Ari, right? Can I ask
You
a
can say,
sensitive question? Did
I
you
love-
did you lose any friends? Did any people fall off?
Absolutely.
Yeah, why?
Like I said, I feel like it's hard for the youth to show up in like what's important, and you know, when you're going through like your 20s, you're really trying to figure out yourself. And so I feel like I lost all my best friends during my journey, and a lot of them said I was selfish, and you know, I wanted people to be there for like surgeries and things like that, and they didn't show, and those things hurt my feelings. And they're like, well, the world doesn't revolve around Ariana. So I'm like,
Wow.
that's why I just really rely on my sisters a lot, because
Right.
they have the same language that I do, and I don't have to explain to them why things could be important. So that's why I say they're like my number one best friends, and I really don't, even to this day, I don't place high expectations on my friends because they don't understand. And so if I'm struggling with something that's like breast cancer involved, I'm more than likely calling y'all.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Well, I'll just say I'm sorry that you had to go through that. That's really horrible. I will say like I don't think I lost somebody like on the journey necessarily. But the person that I was dating at the time, he was like a really good support sometimes. But I think at the like in the back of his mind, it was like some attention was drawn away from him. Because I needed a lot of attention and support. And I don't know if anybody else experienced the same thing, but like we had just started dating not too long before I got diagnosed. I remember really early on being like, listen, you didn't sign up for this. Like you can back out right now. Like it's cool. And he didn't. Cool, great. Like supported me through like the massive times, the chemo, lumpectomy, etc. But you get to the end when you're thinking you're seeing that light. I'm like getting my port taken out, and you realize like, wow, like I think we were like linked in trauma, and we probably need to unlink, because that shouldn't be what holds us together. And I'm grateful for like the time that we had together, but like you also have to understand like sometimes your stories are not supposed to be forever stories, of whether that's a friendship, romantic relationship, whatever. If they're not like serving you and supporting you in the way that they need, probably for the best.
And I
that
want to
you part ways.
piggyback off of that too, because I was dating someone during my first cancer journey, you know, like he was there when I shaved my head. He made me look in the mirror and tell me I was beautiful, and like was there for all of my chemos. We had this challenge going on during my chemos where we would ask different survivors like which year was better, 99 or 98, because we were born in 99, 98. Of course I won. 99's better. But it was like when I got healthy, it was the relationship was just falling apart. Like it's like, wow, like we got through all of this, and it's just like, bleh. So we're still good. Like I could call him and we're still friends, but like you were saying too, I feel that same exact thing. Like I just feel like he had that caretaker spirit. I know his mom takes care of his disabled sister and you know things of that nature, but
Wow.
I don't think it was like a forever thing, like you were saying too.
I wonder if it's because, and who knows what really happened, but maybe they're afraid it'll happen again or something, or like they went through this trauma.
And I thought he was my husband. I'm like, this boy is really taking care of me. We're only like 20 years old, and he's like, I'm like, I just had chemo, your bathtub is dirty. He's in there scrubbing the bathtub, like, I gotta get the bathtub clean. I'm like, yes, you do. You know, things like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
It's hard on all relationships, when you have cancer, but I got divorced, so during cancer, so we all, have different stuff.
Like
going
there's
on.
hope though, like
Uh-huh.
for this younger generation. I said, it sounds like there's hope. I think, what I hear are two young men who are really kind of showing up, it sounds
Right.
hopeful, even though it's not the one for you. And it sounds like God sent you just who you needed at that time, I guess.
Right.
H-
Helped out.
how's, what's that, Ricky?
I
Yeah.
said they helped out. That's great.
Yeah. How's dating now ish, if we can ask? Okay, next question. So
No, I can go. No, I was just trying to go. I'm good. I'm good
I got
now.
lost in the gaze. I'm like,
So, I mean, it was weird trying, going back into the dating scene, like after cancer, it's like, okay, when do you tell somebody? When do you have to? I feel like you have to. But at what point do you tell somebody? And if they don't have any reference point, like it may be like an entirely different situation. So I've been with my boyfriend for like 3 years now. But I remember we started dating in October, which obviously breast cancer awareness month. And I remember I was going to an event and like he was like, oh, do you want to hang out? I was like, I can, I'm going to a breast cancer event. He was like, oh, what, like, are you into that? Like, what's up with that? And I was like, well, this is not exactly how I wanted this conversation to like kick off, but yeah, I'm a breast cancer survivor. So yes, this event and similar events are very near and dear to my heart. And so like that just kicked off like a deeper like journey and conversation. But there's love after treatment, and cancer can hopefully find the right one who's understanding and move forward.
well, I feel like, social media is like in our age, like our generation is a big thing. So I'm a survivor, like my breast cancer survivorship is in the bio of my Instagram. So I'm like, if you see it on my social media, don't even DM me if you're not ready, because it's right there on the front page. Like, it's who I am. I do a lot of like everything. My normal job, I treat cancer patients. On the weekends, I'm advocating for cancer patients, and I'm also not scared to talk about my journey. I feel like I bring it up every other day with just little things like why I don't eat certain foods or something, So I don't know. Don't slide in my DMs if you don't like. It's there. It's there.
there it is.
Well, also you do such advocacy work, yeah, the dogs are outside and we should check on the dogs. She does so much advocacy work that she's posting about it and talking about it. And Candace, Ari runs our Touch internship program. We have the HBCU internship program. So she's coaching young women on how to, what they need to know about breast cancer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings up the question, what do you think young people need to know about breast cancer? I mean, we're taught in school it's a disease of aging, and we know that's not the case.
Right.
And it's why so many doctors turn young women away, because they don't fit the profile of what we look, we look at the little chart in the textbook that says who gets breast cancer, 19, 22, 28 is not really in there. And so because it's not top of mind for them, they end up letting their bias turn people away sometimes. So what do you think young people need to know?
Mary, would you like to start?
Okay, yeah, I'll start. I was just gonna say, just paying attention to your body and really being in tune with it. Like,
Knowing your body. Yeah.
absolutely. Because even before feeling the lump in my breast, I noticed that I was like, I could not stay up past 7:00. Like, it was really weird. Like, my energy levels just depleted. I don't know if my body was trying to fight it. I have no idea, but I was literally like dropping down, like head down, and I could stay up late. But 7 o'clock, like, and that was going on for at least like 2 weeks before I found my lump. So I'm like, just even being in tune with that and knowing that something was not right, like something was
Right.
out of the ordinary.
Right.
Yeah, I would echo the same. That's what I tell all my friends and like anybody who has like a concern about something and they're scared to go to the doctor, like especially being young, knowing your body, knowing what's normal for you, and then also not being afraid to go to your doctors, escalate that, like advocate for yourself. Like if something doesn't feel right, talk to your doctors about it and don't let them sort of like brush you off if you feel like they're not really answering or talking to your needs. Like, don't be afraid to go for a second opinion. Because I think so often, especially being young, we hear like, oh, you're too young for that, or we'll just wait for another 4 months or something and see what happens. And unfortunately, sometimes things can progress sooner than that. So that'd be my advice.
So don't let the doctor dismiss you. And then if you feel like something's going wrong with him or not paying attention, enough attention, get another doctor. Not every doctor is like our awesome Mo, you know? Right.
Well, we definitely have work to do, I think. What are you looking forward to? What's exciting you about 2023? We got 2 months left in 2022.
Yeah.
So tell me some things that's getting you percolating and that you're excited about.
I'm excited for travel. Things are opening up, like not like I think I shared with my journey. I wanted to take a cruise more than I wanted to follow up on biopsy. So travel and exploring is like something that sort of gives me joy. And things are starting to open up more, and COVID is a little bit less of a four factor for people. So going out and exploring, continuing to like stay fit. Those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to for next year and beyond.
I would say I'm looking forward to school, traveling as well. I feel like every time I take a trip to a new place, it feels life-changing, you know? You're like, wow, there's so much to life. Also just seeing another year. I'll be 24 in February 2023. So Kobe year.
I love it. I love it.
What about y'all?
Good question. I'm looking forward to seeing 2023. 2022 has been a blast. I hit my Obama year, so this is a year of taking off and doing new things, and I'm looking forward to some rest. Like I always talk to people about self-care and how to treat your body. And I know, Harper, exactly. And I'm like, you know what? I gotta practice what I preach here. So I've been trying to do, exercise and get my body right, and I'm looking forward to that. So and looking forward to the more programming, I think, with Touch. I want to ask you, Ricky, about this young women's program that Touch is really rolling out. Can you tell us some more about it?
Yeah, and we should probably get Haley on. Haley's here too, because she's running it. But we really believe that young women are going to be the voice into our Black families. And our Black families just don't talk about health until somebody's fatally ill or somebody dies. And so we want to stimulate those conversations. And women our ages, Mo and I, we're not talking about it. Our mothers aren't talking about it. And so we really believe that they can bring these conversations to their households. And so we've had, we're on our 4th year of our HBCU internship program. And, and Ari's like been all over that, bringing all these wonderful, wonderful people to us and young people to us. And we're seeing the impact that they're making in their communities with their families, with their friend set. And, they're posting on TikTok and, self-exam stuff on TikTok and whatever. And so it's happening. So we want to just make it bigger. And so we figured, where could we make an impact? The best impact would be on young women who don't have a breast cancer story, who don't have a health problem, who don't maybe doesn't have a family member with breast cancer, even though everybody has some breast cancer story in their life. But we're trying to broaden our outreach so that people like Ari and people like Candace can show young women that don't have a clue that this is a possibility for them that this could be a possibility for them, unfortunately, and they have to be prepared for it, right? So we're doing, we're starting it soon. It's called For the Love of Your Girls. And we have this great funky creative, and we're trying to, we're gonna hit the wall with that in a couple of months or so. But basically, we want to be again where, as with older women, where young women live, work, play, and pray and slay. And so we're going to start to do some events. We're going to start to do stuff where we're actually doing an HBCU homecoming tour over the next few weeks. We're going to Howard, FAMU, Spelman, Morehouse, Xavier.
I'm going to
Hold
FAM.
on. Y'all
Yeah,
going to
we're
my
going to
alma mater?
FAMU.
You going to FAMU homecoming?
We are. It's the 29th. You going with us?
I can. I got Blessties coming to the farm. Man, I wish
see.
I had known.
I
But
know
it's all
we
good.
just literally found out, Gilead, one of our awesome partners, who's
Love it.
did our internship program from the beginning. They
Love
brought
it.
to us, since we had planned to go to a couple of schools and say, hey, bring it. So they're going to 9 schools. And so we're going to go with them. And
Beautiful.
and
I'll do a video. I'll put on my orange and green and do a video.
yep, that's perfect. I know that's what you should do for us. Definitely should do that for us, Mo. But we just want to make young women aware. So they know, I mean, we don't know why Black women under 30 get breast cancer at 4 times the rate. We don't know why these horrible numbers are happening. So we want to just make people aware that, because all of us, as a survivor, I didn't know anything about cancer before I got sick. And, you're like, what? Cancer? Right? And none of us
Yeah.
really are, like, all of us are shocked. But to be able to, help women just be prepared, know your body, know her story, talk to your mamas, talk to your families, have these conversations at home with your mama and your grandmother and your aunties, so that if anything happens, you can say, wait, this didn't feel like this last week. I didn't have this thing right here a month ago, and can be aware, because a lot of them won't take it, even take it seriously as you did, and we'll put it off for a while. So, but, I think Isis had to live through it with her sis, but so she's, are you more aware of things because of Ari, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Way more. Like, she gave me, the only thing that I really knew before Ari went through what she went through was through the self-exam through our auntie. But other than that, like, that's the literal only thing that I knew.
And that's a lot to know that, right? Because,
Yeah.
It's more than I learned. We just learned, don't let them get too big, and
Right.
try to do some exercises to keep them small. And, I don't know what we learned. It was crazy, but they weren't a thing to be proud of. They weren't a thing to touch, and they weren't a thing to talk about.
Right. Well, yeah, and see, for me, I was really flat chested. I mean, my little fake boobs are bigger than the ones that tried to kill me. So I was always like in the itty bitty titty committee. So people used to tease me all the time for not having breasts, and but
It's something, the way we shame women
Yeah, I
about
know,
their breasts,
it's all-
whether they're too big or too small, right? Because I got shamed because you develop too fast, and all of a sudden you get labeled. You develop too slow, you get labeled. We're always policing women's bodies. And,
Right.
I wish that we could really empower women, and I know that through this campaign we will,
Yeah.
to police their own bodies, you know what I mean? To love and touch and appreciate their own bodies, and to know their bodies. Because we say that a lot, but what does it really mean to know your body?
Yeah, what does it really mean? And that means standing in front of the mirror, looking at it, touching your breast, knowing what they feel like. But it takes, I think it takes some courage to do that, especially if you don't, if you haven't had that kind of exposure growing up. But we all need to do it. We all need to be aware, because this breast cancer beast and this triple negative beast, it's no joke. I read a new study that I found, I'll send it to you, that about, age of triple negative, that it is affecting Black women younger. We kind of knew that anecdotally, but now there's some data to support that that's really happening. And we don't want it to come back. We want it to go away, right? So we want to just make sure these babies, they're not babies, they're grown women, but they're dealing with this horrible, horrible thing, We're having a dog attack in here.
Yeah.
No, this has been really powerful, I think, so Breast Cancer Action Month, people watching, what action do you want them to take this month and beyond?
Yeah.
What's the action? Because there's awareness.
Yeah.
I would just say having more conversations, because even though I hang out with like my friend group every week, I don't know that they even talk about their bodies and stuff. So I was like, at my next friend outing, I'm gonna bring it up. It might be a buzzkill a little bit, but I'm gonna be like, hey, do y'all know how to do a breast exam? Do y'all do breast exams? Because I don't even know if my friends do them.
And that's the
Yeah.
best if you can give them. What about you,
feel
Candace?
feel it on the first. Like we can take action with like the little reminder that we put out maybe on social media, that reminder of, hey, women, pay attention, do this thing at least once a month, see where you are.
Yeah.
I love that. I think, you know, there's a good research project in there somewhere, Ari, too, asking people, do they do their breast exams? Do they know the difference in how things should feel, and kind of really digging into that conversation about, you know, knowing your body. Because so many women come to see me and they say, I don't do it because it feels lumpy and I don't know what I'm feeling. And so they don't check and they don't feel, and they're told, especially young women, oh, they're naturally lumpy, which they are. But how do you know the difference? You
Right.
know, and so I do think that we probably could do some really interesting survey data in age groups, even, you know, 18 to 25, 25 to 30, 35 and up. You know, what are people doing, and at what age do they start to maybe do it? And that might be a good research project for the interns,
Yeah.
especially. Yeah,
Yeah.
to see how many young women on these campuses are even doing breast exams. Do they know how to do one?
Yeah, no, I know. And some of the interns are doing like polls at the beginning of the internship, and it's zero, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they feel so good about at the end of the internship, they've gotten, you know, 50 of their friends to start to do them and make a
I love
difference.
it.
Notice though, in the same, you know, we get some of the interns from the same schools. I feel like some of the same school interns, when they do their initial posts, the statistics have been rising. So like when I first started working with the internship, it was like 0%, like, I don't know how to do a breast exam. Have I ever done a breast exam? But this last group of interns, I was surprised. It was about 50-50 on almost all of our interns polls. I was like, wow. So I
That's
think
right.
there's,
We're making an impact.
yeah, I
Right.
think in there.
Yeah, we're making an impact. We're making an
Wow.
impact. Right.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank
So
you
we're
guys for
keep doing
sharing your
more.
stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys. And thank you. I since we kind of brought her in at the last minute. So you gotta come talk.
Candace, thanks for joining us at the last minute too. It's so
I
wonderful
know,
to hear your
Candace.
story.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
And,
much.
and to hear your
pleasure.
perspective about clinical trials is
I
huge.
know that
We got to
is
connect you
huge.
with Ricky and When We Trial, because we need some young voices as well talking about how clinical trials save lives. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
we definitely want you to do the When We Trial stuff with us, because it's, you know, for you guys, for young women, it's the best thing you can do for your bodies, you know? It's like buying an iPhone 14, buying a test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
It's incredible.
So thank you for joining us today. You guys are so awesome. I know you already.
I love you. I miss you, Ari.
I miss you.
I'll
It
see
was
you
nice
soon.
to meet you, Candace. We gotta connect.
Yes, it was nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too. Isis, thank you for joining us. Candace, thank you for joining us. People who are watching, we hope it's been relatable, reliable, and real. So we do every time we turn on these cameras here on blackdoctor.org. And thank you to the sponsors for this special edition of Pink Table Talk. And that's it. The doctor's in.
Doctor's in. Blesstie love. See you
See you
Wednesday.
Wednesday, 6
Wednesday, we're gonna talk
p.m.
about osteoporosis.
Oh, good.
Yeah, bone health.
Fantastic.
All right. Bless you. Love you, Mo.
Love you. Miss you.
Happy Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.